employee engagement is a huge topic. It is beyond fun, and it is beyond your fun Friday. It is beyond your games that you try to put for them. So if an organization has events like AMAs and town halls and public forums, speaks volume of the culture. So the surface level perks don't work any longer.
The People Puzzle is brought to you by Bridgeview Search Partners, an executive search firm specializing in mid to senior level hiring. With your host, Reet Rathore from the HR practice at Bridgeview, let's solve today's People Puzzle together. Hey everybody, welcome to the People Puzzle. We're very excited today to welcome Sandhya Bollam as we tackle another People Puzzle together. Sandhya has spent nearly 2 decades shaping people strategies across industries as diverse as entertainment, media, technology, and finance. That kind of cross-industry experience gives her a unique lens on what truly drives high-performing workplace cultures. She's managed HR functions at some incredible organizations, including Liminal Custody, JioSaavn, Dream11. And through all of these experiences, she's seen firsthand what works and what doesn't when it comes to keeping employees inspired, motivated, and connected. Today, we're talking about employee engagement. It's one of those terms that we hear all the time. Companies invest so much in programs, perks to boost engagement, but do they actually get it right? Stay tuned as we dig deep into what engagement actually means and how companies can go beyond the buzzwords to create meaningful connections. So, hey Sandhya, welcome to the show. We are so excited to have you on board. How are you doing today?
Hi, Reet. It was such a beautiful introduction. Thank you so much for having me on the show. I love the energy that you're bringing onto this show. Excited to be chatting up with you deeper, and let's take this forward. Please, over to you.
Thank you. Thank you so much and welcome. Sandhya, you've had such a fascinating career trajectory, I think, from companies like JioSaavn to Dream11 to Liminal Custody. And of course, you've also spent more time in the entertainment industry with Hungama and even Moj Mobile in Times of Money. So I'd love to start by actually understanding what drew you to HR in the first place and what sort of inspired your journey.
One of my personal favorite questions, and the reason being is that it give you a little bit of time to introspect how you as a HR leader have done over so many years. So I've been very, very fortunate to be working with some amazing companies. You've named them already, but there are a few more. So I've started off with a very, very small company called as Career Catalyst, which is still existing. Very large in media space, run by a great entrepreneur. She's a women leader and doing multiple things right now. And amazing learnings there, right from talent acquisition to growing on to joining Hungama.com, followed by People Group, which is Shadi.com. And I was leading the HR function for Moj Mobile, which is their part. And so I've got an opportunity to work really, really with great people and leaders out there.
Yeah.
Post that, 3 of the most interesting stints, personally for me, in my career journey. One being JioSaavn, which was initially Saavn, then taken over by Jio. Then Dream11, which created a big impact and history in my career journey.
Of course,
and followed by, Liminal, which is into digital custody and security as solutions. So diversified experience, all of them have been great. It was a conscious choice to, be a part of organizations that are high growth, fast paced, thriving to do something big and create a huge impact. Early on in my career, when I just completed my 10th standard, I realized that I was studying these subjects called as human skills, something to do with people. And that's where this whole journey started for me. Chose a bachelor's in management studies, followed by my master's from Jamnalal Bajaj. Very clear. Too much of passion for people, and wanted to be a part of the role where you're helping people create an impact in a wonderful environment. And who better than HR can contribute to that space? And that's why this role and some amazing journeys that I had over this past 20 years.
Yeah, I think, that's very, very interesting. I also deeply resonate with it because I feel like the reason that I also, chose to do recruitment was because of my love for people, for building connections and for networking. So yeah, very, very happy to hear that. Okay, so coming to today's theme, employee engagement. So of course, Sandhya, this is a term that we hear everywhere, but it often means very different things to different organizations. You can say some see it as a job, as job satisfactions. Others can see it as performance-driven motivation, and some just reduce it to sort of perks and surveys. So from your experience, how would you define real employee engagement, and how do you think it looks like in practice?
Okay. See, employee engagement is the most important aspect of an organization's life, organization's culture. it is beyond what people generally try to bucket it and say, hey, you know what, let's do some events. Let's throw parties. Let's take them for an offsite. It's beyond perks. Employee engagement is a huge topic. What an employee is looking forward to when you join an organization. The person wants to be contributing and creating an impact in very many ways. What does this mean? It is beyond fun, and it is beyond your fun Friday. It is beyond your games that you try to put for them. And it is beyond just a simple gift that an organization would want to give them. So holistically, employee engagement enables people to thrive being a part of the organization with a mission that they're wanting to lead and achieve, and to make sure that they're able to create an impact with the contributions that they're, trying to make in the organization.
Yeah.
All the organizations that I've worked for, and we'll stick to conversations and my experience largely with what I've done in value added at JioSaavn, JioSaavn, with Dream11 and Liminal, because they've been my recent achievements. And also they're very, very trendy. You get to work with organizations that are doing things that are absolutely right and needed. So we'll talk a little bit about that and give you examples around these organizations. But I think from that sense, employee engagement is just much bigger than what we are talking, beyond just games and funds and, trying to give some basic perks to people. The surface level perks don't work any longer. It is beyond that. It is deep.
Yeah.
Right? So,
yeah, definitely. I think that's a great answer. You also mentioned that it's beyond, like towards the end of your answer, you mentioned that you think it's beyond the surface level perks and it's beyond the fun Fridays and all these games day that, HRs usually host. So what do you think are some practical examples of initiatives that have successfully fostered real engagement in your past organizations? I think it could be anything.
Yeah. So it's like one size would never fit everyone. So your engagement is always going to be different based on the culture that one organization holds.
Yeah.
Example, in my last 3 organizations, to give an example at JioSaavn, it's the culture of where you let people throw their creative juices flow. Give them an opportunity to think innovatively and then contribute innovatively.
Yeah.
Right? So what kind of a culture is required there? Beyond just giving them music passes, beyond giving them to love for a music festival or giving them, a great places to go and travel to meet the music in the industry, music, collaborators and music people in the industry. You just don't think those aspects, but you now start thinking about what motivates people that are in the creative and innovative bent of mind.
Yeah.
They need opportunities to try and test work that has never been done before, and they want to contribute to that holistically. That's the culture that you're building. That is an engagement they're thriving to be on.
Exactly.
Example. Now, Dream11 is a very high-paced and high-growth organization. Empowerment, accountability, ownership. Something like this in the engagement is going to be giving them great opportunities. I give a beautiful example. So there is this beautiful project that in one of the hackathons, Dream11 decided that the founder of the Dream11 decided that one of the best hackathons will be sponsored and funded by them to make it and to bring it to life as an organization. And then out of the hackathon, DreamPay was born. DreamPay, the team were winner, and that's how the DreamPay organization had started.
Wow.
Which is into the financial services and would support the financial part of it.
Okay, so the winners of the hackathon were basically funded at something of their own.
Yes.
So that's very, very interesting.
One and hackathon was funded to become live. Right?
Wow.
Look at the kind of engagement the employees have to be a part of, right? At the same time, Dream11 also has this concept of offsite, where there are international offsites year on year. Last year, I think a few years ago, they were at Prague. This year, they were at Sri Lanka and etc. So it's a balance. Now we're talking about companies that are all hunky-dory and are doing financially great. But then there are organizations that need to pick and choose culturally also. Financially, culturally, and futuristically. The third organization, which is Liminal. Now, Liminal is about an organization that values trust and transparency because it's a security solutions company.
Yeah, definitely.
What kind of engagement do they need to bring in people on board that are very, very empowered with learnings? So at Liminal, we invested a lot of money in making sure that the learnings are happening right for the employees. So we gave them something called as your learning wallet. We fill in your wallets, you pick and choose and see what you want to learn. You want to unlearn, what you want to relearn. And you can use those learning funds to even go for a workshop which is outside of your city. maybe outside of your country. So
Yeah.
companies have started to think beyond just your fun Fridays, just your other perks that are surface level perks, which might be temporary in nature. So I just wanted to bring that to your point.
Yeah, I think all these three examples are very interesting. I think we need more and more organizations that actually want to build sort of a people-centric culture where, you know, employees do make a difference and they actually focus on what employees want instead of just doing things for the sake of it, right? And that actually, reminds me that I was recently reading the Gallup State of the Global Workplace report, which found that only 23% of employees worldwide feel actually truly engaged at work, right? And that's a very shocking number. Which brings me to my next question, which is from all the companies that you have, been working with, what do you think are the biggest misconceptions leaders or organizations have about employee engagement, right? Do you think that there's a gap between what companies think works and what employees actually respond to?
See, at a lot of places, you will see engagement very disengaged. And while I've given you very, very beautiful examples because of the organization that I've worked, not everybody is privileged enough to get a chance like that.
Yeah.
And that is why you see the percentage that you quoted to me so low. So for a lot of leaders, investing time in engagement really means that taking away their time from their core working hours. And that is a misconception. People don't understand the value of making sure that when your team is a part of engaged activities, anything smallest to the largest, they're able to rethink, they're able to recalibrate. They're able to relate better to the organization's mission and vision. You need to have meaningful engagement activities and make sure that your leaders are able to understand the impact and importance of it. Once that is there, then your leadership will always make sure that they're investing the times and the funds to make sure such kind of events are happening a lot. Hackathon sounds done to a death kind of an event. Believe you me, if you're an innovative organization and high growth organization, and if you don't give people opportunity to express in this kind of a manner, a platform like Hackathon, then it's very difficult for you to keep your people charged up and motivated and help them, realize what they're looking forward to do more in life.
Yeah.
So there is a misconception where leadership has still not fully understood the importance of it because they're still stuck to the core thinking that it is just fun. I think now is the time where HR leaders have started being more intellectually right. They've started putting the points very, very relevantly.
Definitely.
Why a certain event is done and how it's going to create a robust impact on their function and the team. So we've started making meaningful collaborations with the leaders to make the engagement successful.
That is, I think, very, very important also at this point of time. You mentioned something along the lines of that, these initiatives are very important to keep the employees motivated and charged up. And with all the misconceptions that leaders do have, organizations do have, that engagement activities sort of take time and people are not going to focus on their work, etc. Can you tell me about any instance where you did not actually mean to see an engagement initiative work, but it did, or maybe like an unexpected employee engagement initiative that worked in a counterintuitive sort of a way?
Yes, there are. I mean, we keep trying a lot of good things that sometimes, even HR might feel that, see, culture is a core to, the engagement. So every engagement that an HR leader would decide would be based on the culture of the organization.
Yeah.
Strategies would have been completely different when I worked with a JioSaavn. My strategies would have been completely different and slightly unique when I worked with Dream11. And then now with Liminal, as an HR leader, what I would have done would be completely different.
Yeah.
There are times when you really need to choose and pick the right one, which works what for the organization. So I'll give you an example that worked really well. And I'll tell you both from Liminal because we did very, very interesting things at Liminal. So we realized that we started to do something called an anonymous feedback. And we wanted people to express what they're feeling. Now, personally, in anonymous, people open up, people will tell you, and these through your surveys, they'll try to tell you whatever they feel in the most right spirit.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, what according to me failed was when you're an organization that your core business talks about trust and transparency, right away, as an HR leader, what I could have done is to keep it an open forum and more transparent instead of keeping it very anonymous. That way, your trust and transparency is built double up. Like Liminal is an organization that talks about runways. This is the runway we have for the business. This is how we are, contributing. This is how we are working hard. This is where we are. So in that kind of transparent environment, you don't need a platform which says anonymous. You absolutely can have a platform which is talking to you clearly, directly via town halls, via your, ask me anything and stuff like that, those events. So I think that's the one which I really didn't find very impressive and didn't work well because For some organizations, having an anonymous survey might really work well. For established organizations, for things that are doing very, very well. I'll give another instance. So while at Dream 11, one of the things that we saw is Ask Me Anything was the most popular piece of engagement that we had in the organization. Amongst various multiple things that we were doing absolutely right. Now, why Ask Me Anything was very, very crucial is because these were answered by the founder directly. No mixing, matching. The founder, it is a big ownership when your leader of the organization who's driving this revenue business is investing time in an EA. It's much bigger than doing a skip level meeting.
Yeah.
Why a founder of the organization? Because you're answering to people in large in making sure they're expressing them with full honesty and sincerity. Now, this doesn't mean your answer needs to be kind and sweet all the time. As a leader, when you're able to focus and communicate clearly that this is where what you've asked is right. So what we can offer, and this is what we can't do, is very good enough to say that how gracefully as an organization we are thinking about you and us as an organization both. So Ask Me Anything on a certain platform worked wonders. I don't know a single question which would have been unanswered by the founder of.
And was this anonymous as well?
No, absolutely not. So there was this beautiful feature where you could choose if you want to reveal your name or you could, keep it anonymous. The point being, Ask Me Anything is a public forum where every employee of the organization is able to read and see what is committed. So this is a very high level engagement. Believe you me, I mean, this is beyond somebody taking you to a trip to a Sri Lanka or a Prague. It's a big commitment made by the organization that, hey, you know what? We are here to hear you. And it's the ultimate leader of the organization who's, trust me, literally busy. So organizations have started investing those kind of, engagement-led initiatives.
Yeah.
Beautiful things. Like one of the things that I'm absolutely proud of that I introduced at Liminal was making sure your one-on-one checks are very critical. And fortunately, me and my founder shared the vision mutually. So he would continuously do the skip level meetings with everybody in the organization. So everybody as we speak. I would manage along with my team the bi-weekly or a monthly one-on-one catch-ups. These are the first level information that are so critical. So if you know my background, I've been a part of growth stage and early stage startup organizations that have scaled to become an, IPO or get acquired by organizations. Organizations like these, having dynamic engagement initiatives, play a very critical role in an employee's life. That is why you'll see great stability and retention in organizations that are doing great engagement. Salary alone is never a motivator for a person to be a part of the organization. Every employee desires to know what better plans does organization have for me, right? Definitely. So I think if I've answered your question.
Yeah, definitely you have. I just have, a follow-up question to what you said initially, that one of the engagements you felt did not work right at Liminal was the fact that, you made the survey anonymous. So I think it was a smaller organization as compared to your other two organizations, Liminal at the time.
Yes, touching 100 plus.
So do you think that, having a non-anonymous sort of a form in a smaller organization, do you think that it would have any implications? Do you think that, employees would also be fine with something like that? Do you think it can also work in a counterintuitive manner when, employees might not prefer their identity being revealed?
So honestly, that's what culture is about. If the employee is not wanting to reveal him or herself, that means trust and transparency lacks there. So you are again doing exactly opposite of what your core values are. If your core values are honesty, trust, transparency, then every employee in the organization should be given that liberty and authority and an environment where they're able to express what they feel. And that's how you become better as an organization. So that's why I said maybe anonymous works in an organization that is doing everything best.
Yeah, exactly. Right? Yeah,
but an organization that lives and thrives, that we are a security solution-based organization and has great environment, we don't want employees to feel insecure about asking a particular question. So I think that's where my perspective and thought process came from.
Yeah. Got it. Makes sense. I think in general, different kinds and sizes of organizations look at culture and engagement in a very different way. So you've also, I think, seen engagement evolve across different industry, different sort of workplaces, say from the very fast-paced, digital world of Dream 11 to an entertainment-driven culture at JioSaavn, and now there's a fintech sort of a space in Liminal Custody. So how do you think your own perspective on engagement has evolved through these different experiences, and how do you think employees, is there any difference that you find in how employees also view culture and engagement in these different industries, or do you think it is on similar lines?
So actually, very interesting question, Reet, because it's evolved for both. It's evolved for the organization and for the employees. A few years ago, a decade ago, employees would be very satisfied if they were given a picnic that is an offsite, if they were given some perks around travel, if they were given some perks around food festivals, if they were given some benefit around calling the family home. So you would see a lot of family parties and stuff, family day, grandparents day. I'm not saying they're not to be done. I'm not saying they don't exist and not required. But over and above that, in the recent past, people have evolved and companies have evolved, realizing that value for people is much different than just offering these perks. I'll give you some beautiful stories to say, and everybody's investing very heavy. People started shifting their minds towards company, it's not just company coming first again, it's people first culture now.
Yeah.
And while people have always valued employees, organizations have always valued employees, but the kind of communication and to express how they're valued is different right now. So you see companies investing a lot more in people, their development, their career development, their personal development, or their overall professional development, and give them opportunities. So people just don't crave for perks. Perks are going to be temporary happiness for them. The permanent solution for them is going to be where they're able to create an impact in the organization, where they're able to perform better than what they've done last year, where they're able to see themselves grow financially and as a professional. So that is what people have started to realize, and a lot of great initiatives have come up these days. And I'm telling you, as we speak, learning creates a big role in retaining your employee.
Exactly.
A few of the startups didn't realize the importance of doing that, but of late I've seen a lot of companies investing in people's learning and development initiatives in various ways. It could be bite-sized learning, could be great big learning, could be sponsoring some courses for them to study, but companies have learned to come to that stage that they need to invest more and higher. Giving just bonuses and increments is a very old story. You need stronger reasons to retain and engage employees in an organization.
Yeah, definitely. I think, L&D stipend is something that I've also been hearing about quite a bit. There's so many unique ways in which I think people have started to do that. There's like intra-team and inter-team sessions also that have been started, where people actually present something that they have learned and teach their entire teams on what they have learned and, any skill that they might know that other people might not know. And I think that's really interesting. But with respect to industries, do you think that there's any difference that you can see with respect to industries, what, companies want to invest in terms of engagement? Say for fintech, this is a trend that I have noticed. For the entertainment industry, this is a trend that I have noticed. Or do you think they are sort of similar based on, what companies think the employees would want?
It is different. It's definitely different.
Okay.
What engagement activities I might do in a fintech space might not work in an entertainment space. And I have had opportunity to work in diversified spaces.
Yeah.
So JioSaavn will be very impressed. Employees will be motivated to stay there if you give them opportunity to make sure that they're able to explore creatively, do things in a wilder way. I'll give you a small initiative. Any product-based companies are high-tech, right? One of the things that we did at JioSaavn, and which is my personal favorite, is they learn with my team in California, which was again a tech hub for us. Had an office in California, and there was a cross-learning exchange program.
Okay.
15 engineers from India were sent based on merit and given them 2 months exposure to have cross-exchange of the kind of learnings that they do technologically. They could choose a course there and then come back with those learnings. Likewise, my California team was flown to India and we'd done this exchange program. This might sound that this is done traditionally a lot of times, but companies will not invest this heavy if they don't mean for growth of people. What I'm trying to make is, in a music-related company where innovation, creativity, collaboration is key, an initiative like this worked really well.
Exactly.
Dream11 doesn't need to do that. Dream11 high growth company, fast-paced company.
Yeah.
We need to make sure that they're focusing on the upskilling. The technologies are evolving. The projects are speeding up. How do you make sure that people are able to manage the speed and scale and growth of the organization and their personal learning? So Dream11 initiatives will be a lot more around that. They'll have some programs where a lot of learning exchanges within the organizations will be done. That is a need of the hour for them, right?
Yeah.
How do you make sure employees are retained? Great salaries will be given. Great ESOP programs will be given. These are the needs for an organization like Dream11. Now, coming to Liminal, it is a fintech space. They're very disciplined in their own way. They're very regulated in environment. So then you make sure that we are giving regulatory exposures to people at Liminal, the digital custody solutions provider, and they're highly regulated. When regulations change, you will need to make sure that your team is updated about the same. They are feeling more meaningful and connected and engaged in that way. Liminal is also very, very encouraging about moving people to their different office locations, making sure they're getting exposure there. Like if there is a high potential employee and willing to work in my Middle East entity, we would be happy to consider them for the role there. You need to start thinking at these small pieces where people want to really go cross-function, cross-location and learn.
Exactly.
And have a meaningful. See, every example that I'm trying to give you is over and above the perks that they're getting.
Yeah.
So I will list down some perks for you at Liminal just to tell you that perks are an add-on and not a major impact they create in the engagement. Like I tell you some of the beautiful perks, and just as a learning so that some of the organizations or people that are listening might want to use this. So there's a huge encouragement around making sure that people can learn as wild as they can. There's a book club that was made. It was on a Slack channel. Plus, you could buy books worth an X amount every month so that people read. Now, nobody went and checked if you're reading or no. But it was an inspiration that even if today or post you quit Liminal, at least something you learn, and that's going to leave an impact on your personality, right? We had something called as small as, it's called, we sponsored for the apps. So you watch Netflix, it's sponsored by company. So there were a bouquet of apps that we gifted to our people month on month.
Yeah.
You pay for your Prime, you pay for your Netflix, you pay for Spotify, etc., and then claim them. Then we had health challenges, right? And these are the perks that are there. If you see, perks alone should be good enough for people to be motivated to stay back with us. But company went far and beyond to see how their role becomes more meaningful and impactful. So I think companies have started to learn and understand that retaining people with engagement and that are creating an impact to their personal life become more important and relevant. So that's what organizations have been doing.
I think that's very interesting. I think you mentioned a lot of perks, and I think you also mentioned the fact that very different industries have different engagement initiatives, which brings me back to what you had said initially about how there isn't a one size fits all sort of an approach, and it's very different for different industries. I think these things are to a large extent shaped by culture, industry expectations, and employee needs. And since you mentioned that across industries challenges are sort of different as well, do you think that there's a lot of key differences in how employees also responded to engagement initiatives in these sectors?
Yes, they are. So, see, what happens is for employees also, employees are thriving to grow. They will want to look at organizations that are, more in their favor. Now, favor doesn't mean just by, they just don't see it as one angle. They see it holistically. An employee would want to see if the manager is great, if the company is great, what the company is building is great. Is employee able to create a value to the organization, or is the employee just able to use the benefits of the organization? So they definitely respond differently in every organization. That is why you see a lot of employees that are wanting to quit the company because if one of the parameter doesn't suit them, you want to move on. Then you see them being retained in the organization for a long time, where the culture is really great and engagement initiatives are great. It's a permutation and combination of what one sees holistically. No employees is ever going to be satisfied. For some employees, genuinely that are very career driven and career oriented and passionate, it doesn't matter if an organization is going to take them for a field trip and sponsor their holiday, or if they're going to give them a free meal. Not at all. Their focus is going to be larger. If there is an employee that is not looking at so much on career and is absolutely comfortable with a normal life and normal growth, he'll be absolutely fine with even a small, a little tea break and sponsor tea break by an organization. So to each is its own, but high performing people crave for organizations that help them become higher performer. So I think that's what we've experienced. We've lost a lot of good talent in various organizations where companies have failed to realize that, when I give them so many benefits, what is it that is making them go? Dude, problem is you're not letting them grow. You're not helping them create an impact by offering the right career opportunities. A lot of managers who don't have great career trajectory for the people, employees really wanting to know what next for them. So we'll bear this in mind that we're talking about people that are really high performers and wanting to create an impact. So then there are employees that are disengaged. They don't feel connected to the organization. One of the biggest problems that I have seen in my career journey is also the clear communication. If the organization or the manager is not able to clearly communicate to the people that what is their role, how is their role evolving, what are they expected to do, and if there is no accolades for that, if there is no shout out for that, then you will see people having the dip in the career time with an organization and then quit. So you need to make sure that employees are engaged in a very right spirit where they are creating impact and their impacts are recognized.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
And
Yeah.
so that's very important.
That makes sense. I think you mentioned the term disengaged in what you just said. I think disengagement is it's very very important to be identified. It's very very important to act on it. So with AI, of course, providing data driven insights. Have you seen AI being used effectively to maybe identify if there's any disengagement happening in the organization, or if not AI, can you tell me about any initiatives you took to actually figure out if employees are disengaged and what you kind of did to overcome that?
Yes, we'll come to AI, but I'll tell you the bottom rule. If you are really serious about your business and you want your people to create impact, one must really make sure, and as an HR leader, I keep reiterating this to my leaders in the organization and very clearly to my founders that you have to be people driven. And when I say that, we're talking about are you well connected with your people? Now, for my founder, his number two could be the people. Are we well connected? For the leaders, his number two or number three could be his connect.
Yeah.
People Connect programs become very, very important, both from the HR side and from the employee side. What are we doing in the People Connect program? The policy is simple. The rule book is simple. You hear, you understand, and you act upon it, right? Listening alone will not solve for your problems. You need to understand what one is saying and then act upon it in the right way. And what one says, either they need a further understanding of what is happening or they need improvement from the organization side to make their lives better. Coming to
That's true.
AI, which
Yeah.
is a big game changer in everyone's and
Yeah.
more so in HR's life because it helps us easily connect between the people and the company. We get to do sentiment analysis using tools. How is one feeling today? How has one felt in the last 1 month? What is the dissatisfaction score? Then I'll give you a small example. And at Dream11, there was this beautiful thing where for Dream11 success, I give it a lot to the founders. Not many founders, after growing that big, have time to invest people and then they start disconnecting. But what used to happen, and one of the beautiful thing is leaving the company name aside, the intent is there was this intense analysis done, quarter by quarter. So, for example, the marketing team, sales team, the surveys were run, sentimental analysis were given. The data was presented to the founder. Hey, you know what? This is a sentiment analysis this way. Then what next? There was an action upon it. Every sentiment analysis had the functional head's feedback and the team's feedback, and there were conversations one on one that were taken, and then they were resolved in that manner. Then there is a beautiful piece that is 360-degree assessment, which is my personal favorite, run by Survey Sparrow. What happens in that? And the reason why I'm naming these organizations is because people would want to pick cues and see what works for them. What happens in a 360 survey analysis? It's a very upfront, no filter surveys, which talks about how you as a person are doing, and the report goes to your manager. And literally, people have the freedom to let them know if you want to. So, if there's a beautiful question, would you want to ever work with this person again? The answer would be yes or no with the reason. It's that transparent, and companies have grown. So, imagine if I get to report 4 times saying people do not work with me, don't want to work with me. Then that gives me a hint that, hey, you know what? HR will come back to me and say, hey, you know what, Sandhya, let's work something to make sure that you're able to do things right and people are able to collaborate better. On the other side, if there is an appreciation constantly coming to me, why a 360-degree as a leader that, hey, you know what, Sandhya, you're an impactful leader. People love collaborating with you. We've heard you've given innovative projects. It is an inspiration to me to realize the potential that I hold.
Yeah.
Right. So I think these are some sentiment analysis gives a lot of information to people. That's one way where AI is contributed. There is another way where people are able to introspect also. So, for example, there are these concepts called as learning wallet. Dream11 and Liminal, we have that. Now, what does this learning wallet does? We'll give you an X amount of dollars. You can spend where you want to learn. A lot of times people don't know what they want to learn. So they do a skill analysis. There is a survey or there is a tool they'll use to understand what is lagging in them and then decide what career journey and what learning they want to do for themselves. Then there are chatbots. You'll see organizations where operations, people don't want to waste time waiting that today my HR is going to be contactable and then I'm going to connect with them and then see a resolution. The tool is able to solve for you in your minor queries. So if somebody wants to say that, hey, you know what, my paid leave balances are incorrect, then what I mentioned in the tool, chatbot should be able to help and analyze and resolve that. We're still struggling with a lot of good tools that can play an important role and give you that kind of insight. But these are very, very critical and And I'll tell you, job of an AI is not to replace human. The job of an AI is to enhance human resources. We will be in a sorry state to see AI will never be able to do what we are doing. There's a human connection we
Definitely.
have. There is a mind we
Definitely.
use when we talk. There is a filter we use when we talk. So I think it's a combination of what an AI can do, your digital tool can do, and what your HR can do is going to do wonders in the engagement. But
Yeah.
believe you me, AI has saved a lot of time with the kind of research and analysis that they do. I don't need to read people's mind. I get some inputs from AI, which helps us collaborate, work on the engagement plans, and improve the communication company wide better.
I think that's the kind of surveys that you have mentioned, the kind of feedback sessions that you did, and even the learning wallet ideas, like a very, very interesting use. And I think in our conversation today, there's one word that's come up a lot of times, which is culture. So that's what I was just pondering upon, that I think this is something that I would really like to know from your end as well, because I think culture and employee engagement definitely go hand in hand. So I wanted to understand from you, I think even I was reading the India Happiness Report a couple of days back, which mentioned that, company's culture is the single biggest factor that actually influences employee happiness, even more than salary or work-life balance. So what do you think, how important do you think a culture or core values are in a company, and what kind of strategies do you use to basically instill and reiterate that culture and those core values in new employees as well as in the employees that are already there, older employees or long-term employees?
Great. So culture is built over the years, right? When you'll see an organization that started off and then it started to improve year on year and become better. One cannot do everything right at the first place.
Yeah.
There is a learning journey, culture evolves. At the same time, culture cannot be dynamic. It has to
Yeah.
change at an interim cap, but it cannot be constantly changing. Then you lose trust, right?
Definitely. Yeah.
It's the simple rule book. You like to go to your house because you have a friendly environment. There are people that help you grow, enhance, support, love you, make sure that you're comfortable. That is why one likes to go to home. Exactly,
Yeah.
replica of that is the organization. People spend most of the hours of their day, of their life in the organization where they meet a lot of people. They need to feel comfortable, they need to feel uplifted, they need to feel inspired, they need to feel there is a purpose to what they're doing. People travel 2 hours one way and come to the office. They need
Yeah.
to see something meaningful in their life happening, which drives them, and that is culture. Culture is a base. It's
Yeah.
literally a base and the foundation for engagement and the organization as whole. You cannot mess with culture. When I say
Yeah.
that, you need to make sure that you're working with full honesty, with full sincere financial capabilities, emotional capabilities, and that is where you need to have right HR leaders who build in that for the organization.
Yeah.
A lot of time, high growth, fast way company or founders may not understand where they're heading to. And they may never be able to understand further that, how do you bridge the gap between the employees' expectations and the leadership expectations. HR is going to be making a big impact by making sure that those dynamics are fixed properly,
Yeah.
right? They lean towards employees, they lean towards their leadership and try to see and over communicate what is going right and wrong between the two.
Yeah.
And culture is practically very, very critical because people will find jobs, people will find money, people will do everything right. But if the culture is not right, emotionally it's a big burden for employees to stay back. Now, what
Exactly.
examples of culture not being right? Overwork is one point. Unnecessary extended meeting hours is one point. No value or no appreciation is one point. And companies may not do this intentionally, but these things happen very subtly because of
Exactly.
a good HR team who does not reiterate the importance of this. And culture is a vast subject. Culture is how
Yeah.
one is talking to the subordinate, how one is talking to the
Yeah.
leadership. Culture is how you make people feel when they're underperforming. Culture is how you make people feel when they're overperforming.
Exactly. I think I have a follow up question to what you just said,
Yeah.
right? With in organizations where culture isn't at its best,
Yeah.
where employee engagement is low, people don't feel connected, could be because of whatever reasons, overworking,
Yeah.
not being heard. So, what do you think are the first steps, a leader or an HR practitioner who gets into, an organization such as this should take to start sort of making things better and picking things up? Because I think you have also handled your companies, your ex companies, so a lot of different transformational periods, not with respect to, the culture, but general transformational periods. So, how do you think this should be tackled?
So it's very important for the HR leader to understand nuances of the organization, right?
Hmm.
We need to keep hearing, we need to keep listening, we need to observe what's going on.
Yeah.
First step is to make sure give an environment where your employees are able to provide the feedback.
Hmm.
Also, if you think you're unsure about the culture in the organization and if
Yeah.
you're wanting to design something for them, understand what everyone is feeling in the organization. Could be an
Hmm.
anonymous survey to start with,
Hmm.
especially assuming that things are not going right in the company. Take the survey and the information to the person that's going to create an impact and
Hmm.
help in the resolution. Could be the founder, could be the CEO of the organization, could be the HR leader directly who are empowered to rebuild the entire culture. Make sure you're understanding what every employee is trying to say. The feedback don't come in the air without any reason. The feedback is always
Hmm.
backed by the data. The
Yeah.
next best thing to do is HR starting to get one-on-one conversation with the team. People open up with the HR a lot more than they would do with the managers or the functional heads. Take this information to build a healthy environment. We are making sure that the company is able to incorporate and go back to them and tell
Hmm.
them that, hey, these are the action plans we have for you based
Hmm.
on the feedback. And this is
Yeah.
not a one time exercise, Reed. We are talking about engaged culture constantly. Now, you define constantly, it's a quarter, it's a month.
Yeah.
If you don't hear, the companies don't exist. If you don't hear to what your people are saying, company will never be able to understand and improve and grow bigger. The kind of people create on the
Yeah.
organization with their hard work is immense and highly
Yeah.
valuable, right?
Yeah.
While there is a product that is needed, high tech that is needed, great strategies are needed, but it's ultimately
Hmm.
the people that are going to give shape to what you're going to be designing and thinking, giving life to the projects that you're thinking and aiming to do. So
Yeah.
we need to
Exactly.
take this damn seriously, very, very
Yeah.
seriously. And the first few steps that I talked to you is about is one-on-one conversations, going back to them with a constant feedback on what is the action plan. And the last, we keep repeating this exercise. That's the
Yeah.
right way. And I would suggest people that are struggling to build the culture, start working with the leadership and the founders to over communicate with your people.
Exactly. And I don't think that, it can be achieved in even a few months' time. I think it takes consistency, takes, I think, the betterment of your efforts, whatever efforts you're making, you need to keep making them better to make sure your employees know that, you're valued. I
Yeah.
think that's something that's really important. So you mentioned that communication you feel in general for all your organizations, it is a very, very important part of engagement, of culture in general. So, what do you think are the best ways to keep employees engaged and feeling secure when, say, a company is going through sort of a transformational period? So it could be anything. It could be a funding crunch, it could be a merger or an acquisition, it could be a liquidity event, anything of that sort. What do you think are some best ways, with respect to communication, of course, to keep employees engaged and feeling secure in such a situation?
Again, great question, Reed, because a lot of people feel there is a lag and they don't understand what are happening at the top leadership level. And it's very dynamic and diverse most of the time. So the best
Yeah.
way to do is, and a most genuine way to do is to stay connected deeply. And I've seen two events that are very successful and over communicative for
Hmm.
people and they feel
Hmm.
empowered. So I
Hmm.
would, if I'm at the entry level in the organization, if I know what my founder is thinking or the CEO is thinking, I'll feel
Hmm.
privileged and
Yeah.
honored and respected to be a part of this organization. Now, what
Yeah.
does that mean? There are two successful programs that I have seen
Hmm.
that are you work on it and they always work. A
Hmm.
town hall, there is a purpose to town hall.
Yeah.
Two, there's Ask Me Anything sessions. Now, you name it, hear me out, ask me anything, listen to me, talk to me, doesn't matter. The
Hmm.
point being is you need to offer some platforms where your leader in the organization is communicating to you clearly where we stand and how well we are doing.
Hmm.
The cash flows, the losses, the
Yeah.
runways, the great things that we've achieved, the business that we are doing, everything. So if an organization has events like AMAs and town halls and public forums where they're able to even a small email about a great business deal that we would have done or a
Hmm.
Slack announcement,
Hmm.
speaks volume of the culture and it creates a huge inspiration in the head. So if an
Yeah.
engineer who's just worried about the coding all the time, if he gets to know, he or she, that this is the kind of business we've achieved and revenue we've done, imagine his inspiration level and motivation level to double down on his work and understand the urgency of the project that he or she is going to deliver.
Exactly.
It's a
Yeah.
big
Definitely.
story that needs to be told by the person that has delivered the business.
Yeah.
No
Same.
negotiations, because a lot of times the leadership might think that, hey, you know what, the manager would communicate. But when forums like AMA and you have town halls and public sessions like that, they are great ways to handle engagement, and it inspires people at many levels because they get to hear from the man himself who's driving the business.
Exactly. And I think that's very important. Through these transformative sort of events, if employees are not finding out what they need to know and just wondering, just left to wonder what's going to happen. And obviously, there's a sense of insecurity that also comes in with respect to their job, with respect to where they stand. And I think it's important to also come from the leadership itself, and only the leadership or the HR team that has to communicate. Yeah, I think this directly impacts engagement as well. And also, that brings up a very interesting question, which is basically that I think a lot of companies assume that if employees in a company say seem happy, they must also be engaged. But happiness and real engagement aren't always the same thing, in my opinion. And just because someone enjoys their sort of work environment doesn't mean that they might be motivated to contribute at their highest level. So, with that, how do you differentiate happiness from true engagement? And how can leaders focus on engagement in a way that drives both business outcomes as well as personal satisfaction?
I'd love to tell you a short story and what I went through in my life. So generally people ask me, hey, you know what? Why would you quit a company like Dream Lemon in less than a year?
Yeah.
And the most beautiful answer I said, it is one of the most wonderful jobs one could have and highly comfortable. I get gifts month on month. I get everything I need to eat. And then we go on trips international. There is barely something that I can innovate and contribute, and very, very comfortable zone. All the perks I could imagine of your ESOPs are great, and etc. etc. But I think what people also crave for is to do a job that will create an impact in a very big way. Now, I have been reiterating about creating impact a lot of times.
Yeah.
Because if today you're at a job, breathe, and you're given all the perks, but you're not satisfied with the work that you're doing and you're not creating an impact and not contributing, you're just one of those others that are in the organization. You need
Exactly.
motivation to see where you're going. And that's what.
Because at the end of the day, it's about work.
Yes.
It's about the work that you
This is very, very easy, like
Yeah.
you give employees everything that they want. A well-funded company would do that and you're done.
Yeah.
What people also crave for is to do a job that is highly satisfactory in nature, where their career growth is taken care of and they're able
Yeah.
to make an important influence
Yeah.
in the organization and the product. So people are craving
Exactly.
for that. And that requires a bigger picture than just what we discussed.
So I think that's a very important distinction, that engagement isn't just about making employees feel happy in the moment. It's also about building a long-term connection
Yes.
with the company and its mission. And that connection definitely starts from day one. It has to keep, on your toes till the day you are employed with the company.
Benefit that one can get, but
Yeah.
engagement is a permanent experience that you're giving to people. It's an experiential happiness.
Yeah.
Happiness is just by giving perks and you finish it off, and perks are exhaustible. But when you keep them engaged and feel engaged, I think it is beyond, it's more permanent in nature. It's beyond just giving them temporary happiness.
I think this has been very, very helpful for all our listeners who are HR professionals, just getting started or looking to level up engagement. What do you think are some must-have tools or resources or any strategies that you would like to recommend to them?
We need to have the best tools. I've got a chance to work on many, many tools. Don't want to promote any company.
Yeah,
We have many, amazing tools out there. If you're looking at performance as a measurement, you have an tool called as Profit.co. We used heavily X to 10X, which is people cues. I've personally liked the product. It talks about your surveys and your conversations on one-on-one, and you get to know the analysis. Amazing one. Like I talked about Survey Sparrow. Then there are, Slack. Slack is my personal favorite tool because it lets you communicate to anyone, anywhere, and there are a lot of great features.
Yeah, definitely.
A lot of powered tools that are existing in nature. Great hiring tools that have come in the market that automate your interview process. One needs to start like Lever does great, Workable does great.
Level is good.
Lever is great, Workable is great. So we need to start using tools, and I'm sure many more are going to keep coming. Many more are going to keep coming with high tech we going around. So one must depend on automation as much as possible.
I think that's the future we need to.
And it will speed up, it will give you accurate data. It will make you help decide much better. It will be able to help you in interview analysis, candidate nature. You'll be able to make decisions a lot better. And tools like these are really impressive and have worked well so far.
Thank you so much for giving us so many tools. I'm also gonna go and look them up. Okay, so we're here on our last question that I have for you. For HR leaders that are just starting their career or just starting their journey in a new company, what is the one piece of advice you'd give them on creating a truly engaged workplace?
So, honestly, every HR leader needs to have their eyes, ears, heart open all the time. Be aware, be genuine, be authentic, understand what company is wanting to, offer as an experience to people. Help
Hmm.
the leaders to, if they are incorrect and not able to give the best out, feel more comfortable to express what you feel as an HR person. Could be the leader, could be any level. Communicate to the leaders, right people, what's the right way to clear, said that. Depend on surveys and inputs of
Hmm.
surveys, analyze them and go back to people, right people, with helping them why these surveys are there and what kind of solutions can be offered. So
Yeah.
you need to be an HR that is very sensible in nature and being very transparent in communication. A lot of
Yeah.
HR people find it very difficult to go back to the leadership and say, hey, you know what, this is not happening great in the company. But
Hmm.
it's very critical for an HR leader, right HR leader, to create a healthy environment. Ultimately, it's your people that are going to be getting an experience because of the HR of good or bad or ugly. So,
Hmm.
it's important for an HR leader to make sure that they're doing it in the right way, helping people at least to be, someone's there to listen to you.
Yeah.
And once you hear that information, communicate that information in a way that we'll be able to have an outcome to help them. So that's
Yeah.
going to be creating the right balance for both employer and employees.
I think that's amazing advice, and I'm sure our listeners would take away so much from this discussion that we had today. Sandhya, thank you so much. I think it's clear that engagement isn't just about programs and policies. Like, as you said, it's about building meaningful connections, it's about creating trust, making sure that there's communication, and, understanding what employees truly need. And really happy to have you on board. I thoroughly enjoyed this conversation, and thank you so much. And to our listeners, employee engagement, of course, isn't just a one time initiative, it's an ongoing conversation about culture, communication, and care. And I think Sandhya is an epitome of that. I think your entire career, I think I'm very, very, very happy and very impressed to speak to you. And yeah, if the listeners, if you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to subscribe to the People Puzzle for more conversations with top HR leaders. Until next time, thank you so much.
Thank
Thank you
you.
so much, Sandhya, for
Thank you,
coming
Neek,
on
for
board.
having me. It was wonderful to
Yeah,
be on your
it
show.
was an amazing
Wishing you
conversation.
all the
Thank you.
best. Thank you so much.
Thank you.